The Great Goat Wedding, a battle for land and justice. In the heart of Pine Valley, Colorado, where the Rocky Mountains cast their shadows over a crystal-clear lake, Michael Carter stood on his 5-acre farm, feeding his goats under the crisp morning sun. The land, inherited from his grandfather, was more than just property. It was a sanctuary, a place where Michael had rebuilt his life after his agricultural tech startup crumbled in Silicon Valley 3 years ago. But that morning, as he sipped his coffee, the rumble of an SUV shattered the peace. Margaret Ellison, the iron-fisted president of the Pine Valley Homeowners Association, HOA, stepped out, her designer heels sinking into the gravel. She thrust an envelope at Michael, her smile as cold as the mountain air. "Mr. Carter," she said, eyeing his muddy boots and the goat nibbling at his side. "The HOA has approved a redevelopment plan. Your land will become a wedding venue by summer." Inside the envelope was a notice offering a fraction of the land's value, highway robbery dressed in legal jargon. Michael's stomach churned. This wasn't a negotiation, it was a declaration of war. Before he could respond, his neighbor, Henry Walsh, a grizzled Vietnam vet with a knack for sniffing out trouble, rolled up in his rusty pickup. "Heard you had company," Henry said, glaring at Margaret. He'd seen the HOA bully other families out of their homes, and now they were coming for Michael. "Same old playbook," Henry muttered. "They've been redrawing property lines to steal land for their fancy projects." Margaret's smile didn't waver, but her eyes flashed. "This is for community improvement," she snapped, then drove off, leaving a cloud of dust and a ticking time bomb. That night, Michael dug through his grandfather's old files, finding the original property survey. Sure enough, the HOA's new maps had shaved off chunks of his land, reclassifying them as community development zones. Then came an email from Emily Harper, a wedding planner and the mayor's daughter, congratulating him on their collaboration for the Pine Valley venue, a project he'd never agreed to. Worse, she'd already taken deposits for weddings on his land. The audacity was staggering. Another letter arrived, this time from the county, citing fake environmental violations and demanding he remove his livestock within 30 days. The walls were closing in. As Michael walked his property with his trusty goat, Buddy, he reread a letter from his grandfather's will. "This land is for family traditions. Never bow to manipulators, Michael. Get creative." Scratching Buddy's ears, Michael grinned. "What do you say, pal? Ready for a wedding?" The next morning, Michael called his college friend, Rachel Bennett, an environmental lawyer with a knack for dismantling shady schemes. Over coffee on his porch, Rachel pored over the HOA's documents. "They can't just take your land," she said, her eyes narrowing. "Your property predates their authority, and these violations are nonsense. But fighting them head-on will bleed you dry. We need something bolder." Michael showed her the will's clause about traditional family cultural events. "What if I throw a wedding for my goats?" he asked, half joking. Rachel laughed, then stopped. "That's so crazy it might work." Colorado law protected agricultural land for cultural events, and proving a goat wedding wasn't a family tradition would be a legal nightmare for the HOA. Rachel filed permits for a cultural heritage festival, leaving the details vague. Henry dropped by with a truckload of wedding decorations, white chairs, arches, and twinkling lights he claimed were military surplus. His cryptic grin suggested there was more to his story. "Sometimes," he said, "the best way to beat a bully is to make them look like fools." Michael spent days sewing tiny tuxedos and veils for his 42 goats, sketching a ceremony visible from the main road. He posted a dramatic trailer online, tagged #Pine Valley Goat Wedding, and watched it go viral. Locals flooded his inbox, some confused, others cheering. By the time Margaret sent a cease and desist letter citing noise violations from his goat rehearsals, Michael was ready. He caught Charles Reed, the HOA's vice president and local construction mogul, skulking near his fence with a camera. A well-timed sprinkler doused Charles, sending him sprawling into a pile of goat manure. A teenager live-streamed the fiasco, and #ManureMan trended locally. Then came a game-changer. Rachel secured approval for the festival from the Department of Cultural Affairs. As Margaret's SUV idled nearby, Michael waved the certificate. "Care for an invitation?" Ceremonies Saturday. Her face twisted in horror. She knew his event would clash with the HOA's press conference to unveil their venue, on his land. Friday morning, the rumble of construction trucks woke Michael. Charles's crew, led by Margaret, stormed his gate claiming a temporary land use agreement with a forged signature. Michael recorded everything, his heart pounding. Rachel arrived, legal papers in hand, and declared, "You're trespassing. This festival is permitted, and that signature's fake." A news van pulled up, led by Jessica Moore, a sharp-eyed reporter who'd caught wind of the story. Margaret's triumph faded as Jessica's camera rolled, capturing the forged document and the crew's retreat. Someone unlatched the goat pen, but Buddy, ever the leader, herded his flock back. The chaos only fueled Michael's resolve. "We're doing this tomorrow," he told Rachel. "The biggest goat wedding Colorado's ever seen." That night, with Henry's lights and Jessica's promise of live coverage, the farm transformed into a whimsical venue. Michael adjusted Buddy's vest, whispering, "This is it, old friend." Saturday dawned magical. Over 200 locals arrived, bringing food and defiance. Children tossed petals as Buddy led 42 goats down the aisle, their tiny outfits sparkling in the sun. Mountain State News broadcast live, framing the event as a stand against HOA greed. Margaret and Charles watched from the sidelines, fuming. When Margaret called the sheriff, Rachel's permits shut her down. Charles tried sabotaging the power, but Henry's backup generator roared to life. The crowd cheered as Buddy and his bride were pronounced goat and wife, not for the absurdity, but for Michael's courage. Then Margaret slipped. Confronted by Jessica, she admitted to taking deposits for a venue they didn't own. The camera caught her backtracking, but the damage was done. Michael announced a week-long goat wedding festival to cement his claim, and the community roared in support. Monday brought a gut punch. A restraining order, issued by Judge Harrison, halted Michael's festival, claiming health hazards. The HOA had scheduled an emergency hearing he was never notified of. Rachel was livid. "They sent the notice to a fake address. This is illegal." Margaret's smug email followed, announcing their press conference. Charles even demanded compensation for goat-inflicted injuries from Buddy Jr., who nipped him while guarding Michael's files. Hope flickered when Emily Harper emailed, distancing herself from the project. "I wasn't told the truth about this land," she wrote, requesting her name be removed. Then Henry returned with a bombshell, a recording of Margaret, Charles, and Judge Harrison discussing how they'd split the venue's profits. "Old military contacts," Henry said, shrugging. Rachel urged caution. Playing it too soon could backfire. Tuesday morning, Judge Clara Thompson, known for hating corruption, stayed the restraining order, citing due process violations. Jessica's news crew filmed Michael restoring the wedding arches, while Henry rallied 3 families the HOA had previously forced out. At 11 a.m., as Margaret began her press conference, Mountain State News aired an exposé. Michael's security footage showed Charles trespassing, Margaret's team forging maps, and their plot to harass owners. Henry's recording sealed it, clear evidence of judicial misconduct. Rachel filed a lawsuit against the HOA, Margaret, and Charles for fraud, harassment, and conspiracy. Emily stepped forward at the press conference, revealing emails proving the HOA's lies. By afternoon, Judge Thompson banned the HOA from touching Michael's land and launched a criminal probe. The mayor, dodging scandal, suspended the venue project. Residents stormed the HOA office, demanding answers. 3 days later, Judge Thompson ruled decisively. The HOA's altered maps were voided, Margaret and Charles were ordered to refund deposits with penalties, and the board was dissolved for a court-supervised election. Investigations exposed a years-long scheme to steal land for profit, implicating Margaret, Charles, and Harrison. All faced criminal charges. Michael's victory was hard-won but sweet. The legal fight drained him, but court-awarded fees helped. He turned part of his land into a community farm, teaching kids about sustainability. Buddy and his herd became local stars. Emily, now an ally, proposed hosting real weddings on the farm, with goats as honorary guests. Michael agreed, keeping control to honor his grandfather's legacy. Rachel's law practice soared, specializing in HOA battles. Henry, revealed as a former military judge, helped rewrite the HOA's bylaws. Jessica's reporting won awards. Margaret and Charles, last Michael heard, were buried in legal woes, blaming each other. Sitting with Buddy one evening, Michael reflected. He hadn't fought for revenge, but to protect what was his. Sharing his land with the community felt right, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Sometimes, the wildest ideas, like 42 goat weddings, teach the biggest lessons. What do you think? Was Michael's stunt justice or chaos? Have you faced bullying or injustice in your life? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on standing up to power. Let's get this conversation going.